Namaskar and welcome to NatStrat Conversations. My name is Pankaj Saran. I welcome you once again to our episode, and I'm so happy that you join us in our discussions and conversations on geopolitics and technology and security. Today we are going to discuss Pakistan. I have with me a very special guest, someone who's a renowned and established expert and watcher on Pakistan. Mr. Tilak Deveshar. Tilak, welcome to...
Thank you very much, Pankaj. Thank you for having me again.
Always a pleasure. Tilak is an author of 4 books. He has worked in the security establishment in India, closely associated for decades with Pakistan affairs and Afghanistan. He was with us on NatStrat Conversations almost a year ago. And so we're meeting after a gap of about 9 or 10 months. And a lot has happened since then. I want to begin by welcoming you and also to ask you, somehow Pakistan seems to have kind of fallen off the Indian radar, but at the same time, a lot has happened in these 10 months inside Pakistan. So to begin with, just some initial thoughts on where we are today compared to 10 months ago.
You know, there's one phrase which is very common in Pakistan and has been common since 1947, which is Nazuk mode. Pakistan is always going through a Nazuk mode, delicate moment or critical moments. So I think since we last met, Pakistan has gone through several Nazuk modes. I think we had met before the February elections.
We met in December and then in January.
Okay.
That was a few weeks before the election.
Okay. So, the elections, the confusion about the elections, how the PTI did not have the symbol of the bat, and yet they contested as independents, and I think the army thought that this will take care of the PTI. Despite this, the PTI as independents, they did phenomenally well.
Exactly.
They won about 90 odd seats.
Exactly.
Something that the army didn't expect would happen. So then they ran around to make sure that they remain as independents within parliament. But the independents joined a party called the Sunni Ittihad Council. So they could be under their flag. But the Sunni Ittihad Council had not contested elections and did not have any seat in the National Assembly. So that led to its own problems. Then, in the National Assembly, you have 266 elected contested seats.
Yeah.
And you have 60 for women and minorities.
I think the total is 336.
Yeah. So those 60 seats were then distributed, but the PTI didn't get any as per the Election Act. Then the Supreme Court got into the thing. They said, no, you have to give them their seats. Then this judgment was reviewed. And so it has been one crisis after the crisis. Political, constitutional, judicial, then the judiciary got after each other. So then, of course, the ongoing security crisis, the constitutional amendment was brought in because the Chief Justice, Qazi Faiz Isa, was retiring. And the senior-most Chief Justice was seen or believed to be sympathetic to Imran Khan. And he could well have called into question the entire electoral process and ordered fresh elections even. To stymie that, the government rushed through a constitutional amendment bill. In the first attempt, it couldn't pass because Maulana Fazlur Rahman backed out. He said, no, I can't accept this. Then a watered-down version was brought, and that was passed. The key element of that is the first attempt was to have a separate constitutional court, which will be above the Supreme Court.
Wow.
But in the watered-down version, there's a constitutional bench. So all matters which relate to constitutional issues or come in appeal from the high courts, all that, the really meat of the Supreme Court's work is now being shifted to this constitutional bench. They've got their own Chief Justice of that, who's heading that. Similarly, instead of this fellow, the Chief Justice Mansoor Ali Shah was his name, becoming Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, they maneuvered through this amendment, set up a committee to choose the next Chief Justice. And the Chief Justice, whom the government felt would be amenable to them, he has been appointed as Chief Justice. And Mansoor Ali Shah, even though he was the senior most, has been bypassed. So lots of things have been done, messy things.
Yeah.
So as a result of which, it's obvious that the claim of being a democracy, or that election where people can exercise their vote freely leads to a government that the people have elected, is no longer true in Pakistan. It's just the legitimacy of the present government and the credibility of the present government and the system is very much in doubt.
Yeah, but they all seem to have full international legitimacy. No one is questioning.
But you see, there again, the Western, the two-faced standards.
Absolutely.
That
Absolutely.
you see what is the interest, what interest Pakistan can serve, and if it does serve those interests, democracy can be.
Yeah, so exactly. I mean, so democracy, elections, all the nice values.
Judicial independence.
Judiciary independence.
Which is one of the pillars of any parliamentary system.
So all these are dispensable commodities.
Yeah. You see, now the strength of the Supreme Court is 17 judges. As per the new law that has been passed, they've increased it to 34. They've doubled it. So they're going to pack the Supreme Court with amenable justices.
Is it going to be bigger than the Indian Supreme Court?
The Indian Supreme Court is?
It's probably 30 odd or something.
This is 34. So these 17 new justices, will be picked from all over the other provinces. And you can imagine. And then the army chief, maybe we can discuss that.
We'll discuss a little later, but just to take off from where you have left, but it also is the return of the great Sharif family.
Yeah.
So, they're all back. They were all in exile and they're all back. And so all the cases have been dropped. Saukhoon Maaf.
Yes.
So they're all back in business. And
but this is what happens in Pakistan.
Yeah.
Like classic cases of Asif Zardari. During Benazir's first term, he was the consort and called Mr. 10%. When Benazir was dismissed, he went to jail. When Benazir came back into power, he was out of jail and Prime Minister's house. Then when Benazir was again dismissed, again landed up in jail. And then he went into the presidency. Now he's back in the presidency.
Back in the presidency.
After having spent long years in jail.
Yeah.
So in Pakistan, these are pretty, pretty flexible.
So you have the Sharif family and you have the Bhutto family.
Yeah.
And between the two, I mean, they are basically running it, right?
Yeah. Now the upstart or the fly in the ointment is Imran Khan. Yeah. Because he's come and upset their balance. Two-party system. PTI has come in between because of the political engineering by the army. They were fed up of the Sharifs and the Bhuttos, and they felt, let's get this new guy. He's a cricketer. What does he know about politics? He'll do whatever we tell him to do. They didn't study Imran Khan. They didn't know what he was like, and now they're living to regret it.
So it was a miscalculation.
Total miscalculation by the army think tank, whoever decided to bring him into politics.
And now, just coming to what you were saying, so Wasim Munir has got another 2-year extension.
Asim Munir.
Yeah. So basically, that's another nail in Imran Khan's coffin.
And the nail in the coffin of whatever little democracy is there in Pakistan.
Yeah.
You see, because politicians could bargain with an army chief when it came to his appointment or his extension. They could judge. Nawaz Sharif always didn't follow the seniority principle. Bhutto didn't follow the seniority principle. Zia was number 9th on the list. And he thought he's a Muhajir, he'll be amenable. He had come from India, therefore he's a Punjabi.
Yeah.
Because he came from India, he won't have that kind of support. And lo and behold, we know what happened.
Yeah.
So they have given up that power of bargaining. Asim Munir continues till, he would have retired in 25 November. He continues till November 27. But not only that, as per this new law, an extension to the army chief will be for a period of 5 years.
Yeah.
So come 27, he can get another 5-year extension carrying on till 32. And to ensure that the age limit of the army chief, which was 64, has been dispensed with. So Munir is actually going to be effectively army chief for 10 years.
Yeah.
Till 2032.
Yeah.
So,
but there's no one preventing him from not doing it.
Yeah.
Unless another army chief or an army or general decides
otherwise.
That'll be a coup.
That'll be a coup.
Yeah. Decides otherwise.
You see, Pakistani politicians don't learn lessons. Ayub Khan was appointed army chief in 51 as commander-in-chief. He should have retired in 1954. He was given 2 extensions by the civilians.
Yeah.
Iskandar Mirza then appointed him as a defense minister while he was serving as army chief. Giving him more and more power. So then when Iskandar Mirza wanted to impose martial law, Ayub said fine. And 2 days later he said, well, thank you.
Yeah. I
You
can,
know,
I can
off
do
you
the
go.
same job.
Yeah. And the army is with me.
Yeah.
So off you go.
Yeah.
So, they, by giving so much of power to the army chief and by moving away whatever bargaining chip you have really.
But I think, so General Bajwa, of course, has moved aside and, he doesn't come much in the news. But I think they've now dropped all pretense about the role of the army. I don't think they're apologetic. They probably never were. But now with all these developments of the last 2 years and this last February election, I think everyone seems to be okay with what you have. I mean, there's no breast beating about the army's role and this election also, the February election, and the way...
And all the political engineering that was done. You see, I think what has happened really is that the army has definitely increased its power. I don't think so it has managed to increase its prestige. I think that prestige has been damaged. Activities and whatever Imran Khan was doing, he had called Bajwa as Mir Jafar and all kinds of names for Asim Munir and for the ISI people. So that aura of the Pakistan army he had already eroded and damaged. And then 9th May took place when the co-commander's house in Lahore was attacked. Martyrs' memorials were damaged. So that rutba that the army had, the rob of the army was damaged. So while the power remains the same and power has gone up now, because the army chief has got this extension, that prestige, where people used to look up to the army as the savior of the last resort, that is seriously damaged and eroded. That's a big change.
Yeah, but there was a time when they had given the CPEC also to the army general.
Yeah.
So that, again, because it was the last resort, if anything good had to happen, only he could do it.
Yeah.
So, of course, now they can't become finance ministers. They don't have that competency.
No, but they are doing this, what's called the SIFC, the Special Investment Facilitation Committee or Council, is it? SIFC. Where the army is very much a part of it to seek foreign investment. So that, they said initially the target was $25 billion from Saudi Arabia, 25 billion from UAE, 25 billion from Kuwait it was, I think. And this will boost Pakistan's economy. They haven't got anything. But the fact is that the SIFC is in the commanding heights of the economy, should it want to seek foreign investment or do anything.
Yeah. No, so they also at some level are obviously concerned and chastised that, one area where they really didn't have competency, which was the economy, is the one which has gone down the tube.
Yeah. But also if you look at it, the other area where they had competency, there is security. Security situation in Pakistan is disastrous.
Yeah, so tell us a little more about the last 7-8 months. I mean, we are hearing so much in the news and every
So
day.
just one statistics by a Pakistani think tank. In the first 9 months of this year, there have been more fatalities to terrorist action than the whole of 2023. It is about 1,530, which means 170 fatalities per month through terrorist action.
That's huge.
170.
It's huge.
I mean, just as a comparison, any fatality is bad. We have 3 fatalities in Kashmir, or 4 or 3. The whole country is incensed and up in arms that why is this happening? Do something about it. And you have government and all that taking action, seem to be taking action. In Pakistan, 170 fatalities a month. And you don't find that kind of a noise. Yeah, you have the odd editorial
But maybe
newspaper.
because it's happening in the peripheries.
Yeah, so I was going to come to that. But the kind of anger which should be in the ruling classes,
Correct.
in the intelligentsia and all that is just not there. There's no pressure on the army. And that is their core competency. They failed. And what you mentioned is very true. bulk of these casualties are happening in Balochistan and in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. Very little in Punjab and very little in Sindh. If they were to shift and have even, let's say, 10 casualties, fatalities in Punjab, then you see the reaction will probably be different. But the message that goes to the peripheries and is that we are not important. So the alienation there is now pretty high. And again, when you look at it closely, one reason is, see, the whole of Balochistan has got, I think, 16 seats in the National Assembly. That are less than Karachi or Lahore. So when the governments are formed in Islamabad, in Parliament, Balochistan doesn't matter. 16 seats, kya farak padta hai?
So it's a vast space of empty land, right?
It's 44% of the land area of Pakistan, but between 4 to 5% of the population. So nobody is looking at it. It's not politically important for the ruling class.
And then they launched this operation, Azme Istekam.
The whole idea was when the attacks went up, so they announced this grandiose thing, Azme Istekam. There was so much of opposition to it from Khyber Pakhtunkhwa because they said, the people in FATA and all that, we're not moving out of our homes again. You've done it to us once again when that Zarb-e-Azb exercise took place.
Correct.
Some of the refugees have still not been settled. And people who had to go out and they came back and their homes were destroyed, landmines all over the place. I think we're not going to move out of our homes.
But I think the army also knows the populace has no recourse to justice or appeal for whatever is happening in these areas, right? If there is a heavy hand and so on, there's nowhere for them to go. Right?
Yeah, but then at least they have their house. They have their land. If you shunt them out again and go and live in camps in Karachi, Lahore or wherever else, then they're living as in a pitiable condition. So they said no. The state government of KPK also said no. And a whole lot of other Pashtuns said, hum nahi jayenge is time. So then the exercise, the operation has just dissipated.
But so fine, one is the statistics, right? And these attacks, suicide attacks and terrorist attacks and the army soldiers and officers getting killed. What does this all suggest of the sentiment in Balochistan and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa? I mean, let's say Balochistan to begin with.
So there too, there was the insurgency, which started in 2005. It's gathering more steam. The Baloch, I would like to call them freedom fighters now, rather than rebels.
That's a big term.
Yeah. They have got access to sophisticated weaponry which the US has left behind in Afghanistan. Via the Taliban and via the TTP really. So they have access to night vision, to thermal imaging, sophisticated rifles and sniper rifles. So they are now able to take on the Pakistan army, I wouldn't say at a level playing field, since they don't have artillery, they don't have helicopters, but definitely in a much better. So they're able to match it. So on 26th of August, the BLA attacked 11 districts, including fortified camps. That was a massive operation. So that's one part of it. The second part is the civil society movement. Balochistan didn't have a civil society movement till very late. There was a little bit of efforts, especially on the cause of missing persons.
Correct.
People would, ISI would come and pick up guys who would go missing, tortured, and then dead bodies would be received. Last year in November, there was a particular case, and a march started from Turbat, went to Quetta, and from Quetta they decided to march to Islamabad in December. It was led by women. And that was the most startling and important development in Balochistan. That the women who are very conservative in Baloch society decided to come out because all their menfolk were being picked up and disappeared. So, women whose husbands were missing, whose sons were missing, all came out. And they were led by a firebrand leader called Dr. Marang Baloch. He's a doctor. And by the time she returned from Islamabad, Everybody in Balochistan knew her, everybody in Pakistan knew her.
So, do you think it's going to get worse in the next
So this civil
few
society,
years?
because the army does not seem to see the light or the writing on the wall, that you cannot keep picking up people with impunity. People say, look, if the chap has done something
what
wrong,
is the
try him,
yeah.
put him in court.
No, what is the demand of these protesters?
That we want to
I
know
mean, I'm
where-
asking a naive question, but what's the demand?
For example, there was one lady, her husband has been missing for 15 years. Her demand was, tell me, am I a widow or am I still married? Where is my husband? Can you imagine somebody who's missing for 15 years who doesn't know? So now a term has been coined in Balochistan called half widows. You know that if the husband is missing for 15 years and a daughter who was 5 years old when her father went missing is now 20 and she has been protesting on the road for the last 10 years. That where is my father? And there are hundreds of cases like this. Who are now saying that, look, in fact, the situation is so desperate, Pankaj, that a lot of people say, if you pick up somebody, kill him. At least we'll have his grave. We know where he is. We can go and offer
So is it
our
a-
condolences at the grave. When a person is missing, you don't know whether he's dead or alive.
Of course. That's the worst.
Yeah, that's the worst thing.
Missing persons are
Yeah.
the worst.
So this has galvanized civil society, and they are protesting in a very organized manner.
So it's not a political demand, right?
No, it's not a political.
Yeah.
It's purely. But you see, if you have insurgency on one side, and you have civil rights movement, and there is no political leader who can bridge the divide. You see, for example, nationalist politician like Akhtar Bengal, he resigned last month or 2 months ago. You know why? He wanted to speak in the National Assembly. For 2 days, he was prevented from speaking. Finally, when he was allowed on the third day, somebody said, "Aaj to quorum hi nahi hai." So the assembly was. They didn't let him speak in the National Assembly. So he came out and resigned. And his speech when he resigned is worth reading about or listening to. The pain and anguish that he expressed.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
he said the movement is now out of our hands.
Yeah.
It is with the youth, the people who are in the hills. You've lost the whole horse is bolted. So they were the bridge between the people of Balochistan and Parliament. But he says the Parliament is not even willing to discuss this issue. What am I doing here?
But isn't that dangerous for Pakistan's
Of course.
unity?
Of
I
course.
mean,
Of course.
provinces are critical.
If I can realize it, if other people can realize it, surely the leaders should be able to realize it. But since they only have 15, 16 seats, Balochistan doesn't matter.
No, but 44% of territory.
Yeah. So they think the army, thinks that they can clamp down.
So where does that leave the PPP government in Balochistan?
It's an absolute shambles. The whole aura of the PPP as being Democrats and people's movement and all that
Yeah.
is all flushed down the toilet. The man who's Chief Minister, Sarfaraz Bhukti,
Yeah.
he was on record saying in 2017, his speech was quoted, that the only solution to the Balochistan problem is Baloch genocide. As a Baloch, he's on record saying that Baloch genocide is the only solution to Balochistan. These are the kind of people who are all on the payroll. They're doing the army's bidding. The real politicians like Akhtar Bengal and other people have been totally sidelined and marginalized. So who do the people talk to? In fact, Mairong Baloch said very ominously that there's no place for parliamentary politics or activism in Pakistan anymore. So all the youth and the young people are now gravitating towards the hills.
So Baluch, of course, Gwadar is also there. I want to shift a little bit to the Chinese attacks and this and that. Lots of them. And the Chinese are really upset. Obviously, it's clear. Gwadar is there. The CPEC is in big trouble. Power, debt, the whole thing. How serious do you see this, and how do you view the Chinese anger or irritation?
See, in one line, CPEC is going nowhere. Initially in 2015-16, it was billed at $62 billion. Chinese investments till date is about 22. The Chinese also realized a few years down the road that Pakistan does not have any capacity to repay. We are sinking in good money after bad money. If we are not getting our return, what they had promised, what they were supposed to do,
Yeah.
Why are we putting in good money after
Yeah.
bad money?
Yeah.
And Chinese banks are now asking for
Yeah.
returns. They're asking for money to be given back. And Pakistan is no position. So every 6 months, somebody goes to China and say, please reschedule the loans. You know, we are supposed to pay you $700 million next month. We can't do it, so usko aage badha do. I mean, Chinese are not known for this kind of a thing. This is one. On top of it, you have Chinese getting killed. You know, the other day there
That's
was an
what-
incident in
correct,
Karachi.
correct.
Before that, there was another incident. So the Chinese are saying, therefore the Chinese ambassador very uncharacteristically, in a public forum, after the foreign minister had spoken, he got up and said, this is not acceptable. That if our people keep getting killed, how do you think CPEC is going to progress? Stunned silence, because the Chinese are not known
Yeah, yeah.
to publicly admonish.
Sure.
And
sure.
he just lashed out because they have been very upset at the Chinese workers getting targeted. And despite all the assurances, despite having 2 security divisions geared only to protect CPEC, they're not able to do it.
So it does seem really that the China-Pakistan relationship at many levels is entering a new terrain.
You know, maybe that's a bit strong. You see, the Pakistan-China political relationship and the military relationship continues to be strong. You know, the economic relationship hasn't been able to take off in the manner that the Chinese had hoped for or what Pakistan was expecting.
Yeah.
So the problem is really with the economic relationship. You can say that ultimately it will also impact the political relationship because the Chinese are upset with the number of their workers being killed. But at the moment, I think the military to military and the political relationship continues to be strong. And especially, in fact, you will see it now in January when Pakistan becomes a non-permanent member of the Security Council.
That's right.
Yeah. So there, I think you will be able to make out. I think it will continue to be strong. They will continue to work in tandem
Oh, yeah.
in the Security Council.
Yeah.
If there is a problem there,
Yeah.
then you know this relationship has been damaged.
Of course. No, I mean, there's no, it's not as if the relationship is falling apart, but it's just that they're losing a little bit of their patience.
Absolutely.
The
No
Chinese,
doubt about it.
you know.
Because, you know, this is perhaps the first time or maybe second time that the Chinese embassy and the Chinese ambassador has reacted in this manner. Once earlier, you know, when there was a lot of infighting between the politicians, what is the route of the CPEC? Is it via Punjab or is it going to go via Balochistan?
Yeah.
So Balochistan and KPK were up in arms,
Yeah.
and Punjab, Shehbaz Sharif was chief minister. He said, no, it has to go through Punjab. That time the Chinese embassy had issued a note, in fact, or in one speech somewhere, that Pakistani politicians need to get their act together. Basically telling them, need to get their act together. This is a public statement. That was one time. And now, when he spoke, this was the right, can you imagine? In a public forum, he exercised the right of reply, speaking after the foreign minister. Absolutely unprecedented.
Unprecedented. Yeah, but you know, I mean, the Chinese believe that they own Pakistan. So that's the. But also, I think there's a sense in China that you probably need them less than you did during the Afghan war period, because now they have their own direct links to the Taliban. They don't need a via media.
But I think, you know, for China, the priority is India. So, Pakistan continues to be useful to China
Yeah,
for keeping India under check.
sure, sure.
Afghanistan will come, yes, as the next step.
Yeah.
But so long as Pakistan fulfills that primary role, I think China would be
Yeah,
satisfied.
Yeah.
They're not satisfied with the economic.
yeah, yeah.
And, you know, China does pay a lot of focus to the economic content, especially if they're investing money.
Well, they are the biggest creditors
Yeah.
of Pakistan.
Yeah.
And they're not being particularly helpful when Pakistan needs the help the most.
Yeah. In fact, IMF had given Pakistan the 7 billion
7 billion.
bailout
yeah.
3 months ago.
Yeah.
The first review meeting was to be held in March 2025.
25, yeah.
But as we are speaking today, there is a review mission which has come unscheduled to Pakistan because Pakistan has not been able to fulfill 2 key requirements, which was the loans that they were supposed to get from China and Saudi Arabia. There's a shortfall of $2.5 billion. And the taxes that were supposed to be collected by the FBR, the shortfall of 190 billion rupees. So I think the IMF is worried that this is a 3-year loan. It seems to be breaking up in the first 3 months. So an unscheduled visit by an IMF team is in Islamabad today, just as we are speaking.
Yeah, so Pakistan faces very tough choices.
Yeah.
But on the economy, I mean, compared to where we were, say, a year ago, how would you rate them today in terms of the economy?
You see, I think they're not out of the woods. They're on ventilator because of the IMF, but they have not made any structural changes. They fiddled around with the financials. You know, you squeeze imports.
But are they getting out of the really deep hole they were
No,
in
no.
22, 23?
No, they're not. It's only, you see, if you say they have $9 billion foreign exchange, they're not their earnings. These are deposits that Saudi Arabia has deposited $3 billion. So and so has deposited $2 billion. Somebody else has put in. Basically, the bulk of it is that. Their exports are not doing too well. Remittances have revived. So they've got some money out of remittances. But the debt that they have to repay,
Yeah.
they have to repay about $100 billion over the period of 3 years. 100 billion. The reserves are 9 billion. You know, a lot of economists say Pakistan is already defaulted because none of this foreign exchange is their own. They're borrowing from what Paul to pay Peter, you know, that kind of a thing.
Yeah. So that brings us to the other question about the impact of all this on the relationship with the West. You know, obviously in the post-Imran Khan period, Western criticism of Pakistan has dropped very significantly. And they are actually fairly comfortable, not fairly, but extremely and totally comfortable with the current political arrangement. Democracy, no democracy, it doesn't matter. So there is that goodwill which Pakistan is enjoying, and that's where the IMF and everyone is coming in to, you know, give all this money. I suppose this will continue. I mean, now of course you have, everyone's talking about the Trump era, but how do you see that playing out? The other part of the equation, not Pakistan-China, but Pakistan-US.
You know, here I think the focus of the US on Pakistan, you know, especially after their withdrawal from Afghanistan in August 21, I think first and foremost is some sort of stability in Pakistan so that the nuclear weapons do not fall into the wrong hands, you know, in case of breakdown.
Yeah.
So first is that.
Yeah.
Second is on counterterrorism, that Pakistan should be able to manage its terrorist groups and ensure that nothing from Pakistan or even from Afghanistan lands up in the US back door, you know,
Sure.
or even in Europe. And on these two, they would rather be comfortable with lack of or a hybrid democracy and the army in control
Yeah.
rather than a fully democratic system.
Correct.
Because democracy is,
Yeah.
you know, rambunctious, it is
Messy.
messy.
Yeah.
And you don't know what will happen and who will
Yeah.
break down, suddenly governments fall and things like that. So a strong army, I think that's one of the reasons why the army chief has been given a 5-year extension, because it lends stability to the system. So the West and the US especially, and the new Trump administration which will come in, they feel reassured that this country is now going to break up. There's, you know, terrorists are not going to take over. Radicalization will be kept in check, and so the nuclear weapons will also be.
And they have a bit of a veneer of democracy.
Yeah,
That's okay.
will be kept in check. Similarly, for counterterrorism, who would they need? They need the army.
Sure.
They need the army to fight the terrorists.
Sure.
So, you know, all this, there was a lot of talk, and there still is talk by the PTI supporters in the US, that now that President Trump is coming in, he will seek the release of Imran Khan. I'd be very surprised. Because if you release Imran Khan and he comes back, starts his agitation, you're going to put the government on the back foot.
Yeah.
Where is governance?
Yeah. I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah. And even if it does happen,
Yeah.
he can't become prime minister till there are elections.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, he can't stage a democratic coup
Yeah.
and become prime minister.
I mean,
Third-
all the forces are aligned and arrayed against him.
Yeah. And third, he went out on a limb in his anti-Americanism.
Correct.
If you recall his,
Correct.
you know, waving that
of
paper.
course, of course.
And then when the Taliban took over in August 21, he made this astounding statement that the Afghans have broken the chains of slavery. Means that the Americans had tied them, made them slaves, and they have broken those. I don't think so, President Trump or the American establishment is going to forget the scenario.
So I think that's what people say, no, that Imran Khan's better on the cricket field than in the political field.
I think he's best off in Adiala jail. He's having what they say, desi murgi. He has a gym. He watches TV, he meets who he wants to. Sometimes they prevent it.
Yeah.
But
And so it's all very convenient for everyone.
yeah.
I mean, as long as he's alive and well and healthy.
So democracy at this stage, I'm not sure, is the top-notch priority of anybody in the West.
Anyone in the West, absolutely. So that's wonderful. Now, finally, before we end, India and Pakistan. So, we had elections in February in Pakistan, in May in India. There was exchange of messages between both the Sharif brothers and Prime Minister Modi here. How do you see the relationship, or how do you see the lack of it? What's your thoughts?
It's going nowhere. I think even Dr. Jaishankar made it very clear. His visit, in Pakistan there was a lot of excitement. EAM is coming, and Foreign Minister is coming, breakthrough, this, that. And he made it very clear, look, I am going for a multilateral visit. It's not a bilateral visit.
Yeah.
The only bilateral visit, I think over lunch, he was sitting next to Ishaq Dar.
Yeah.
Chit-chat.
Yeah.
We don't know what was said.
Yeah.
Maybe something significant was said. It's not in the public domain. So, the relationship is going nowhere.
But are people in India losing sleep over it?
No.
Are people in Pakistan losing sleep over it?
Yes.
They are. Okay.
So you find the odd, minister will get up, or Nawaz Sharif will say, there should be trade, trade honi chahiye. And I've always believed that, look, if you're serious, send a serious formal proposal through MEA, through your MOFA, to the MEA.
But now that the elections have taken place in Kashmir, 65% and above turnout, I mean, historic figures, free and fair, I mean, extraordinary development, and it's possible they may have statehood. So doesn't that give them an opening to do something?
It does. Especially if statehood, or as and when statehood is restored, it will give them something to say, देखा, हमारे कहने पे वो statehood restore हो गई है, elections हो गई है, assembly हो गई है.
उन्हीं के कहने पे.
So we will continue our political, moral and diplomatic support. But you see, Imran Khan has backed them into a corner.
Yeah, of course.
By insisting on that
going back.
Of course. They're not going back.
Yeah.
So there is no wriggle room left for diplomats, Pakistani diplomats. How do they get out of this? So they keep looking to India. कुछ तो हमारे लिए करो. Give us some wriggle room in which we can get out of the corner in which we have painted ourselves.
But what do you make of these increase in terrorist attacks in Kashmir last few months or several weeks?
Yeah, that's a very important thing, because it just shows that Pakistan wants to keep this. At one time they may say trade and this and that, but they want to keep this focus alive. Telling the world that so what? Elections have been held, it doesn't really make a difference because the people are not happy.
I believe that the personal relationship between Prime Minister Modi and Nawaz Sharif and Shahbaz Sharif is not at all as bad as between him and Imran Khan. I think with the Sharif brothers, there is still room to do business. Would you agree?
One primary reason, because they have said nothing personally against the Prime Minister. Imran Khan went out on a limb, and the words that he used against the Prime Minister were absolutely, disgusting. Personally targeting the Prime Minister.
I remember. Yeah.
So, whereas the Sharifs had never had anything personal to say against the Prime Minister. So that's a big difference.
That's a big difference.
But there again, on their own, and then you don't know how the army is going to react.
Yeah.
See, with Bajwa, he did.
Yeah.
He had realized, he seen the writing on the wall.
Correct.
And he knew that, look, we can't continue with this.
Yeah.
So he talked about geoeconomics and not geopolitics, things like that.
Correct.
But Asim Munif is an unknown quantity. We don't know.
Is he a very reticent and quiet kind of person?
Yeah, he is. You see, two things about him. He was the ISI chief when Pulwama took place. Right? People,
Correct.
So, and now as army chief, will he want to, I'm sure he's happy with the ceasefire. Allows him to focus on the Western, with Afghanistan.
Yeah.
Because there are problems with Afghanistan too.
Yeah.
But will he go out on a limb to, will he be sure of the loyalty of the army? Will all of them be on the same page? It's far better to continue status quo than to make a radical change of relations with India.
Yeah, I think because, it's been now 5 months since the new government of Prime Minister Modi sworn in June, and now we are here. So I think it looks to me that a lot of his attention is going to be actually on China and much less on Pakistan.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
he made some very interesting comments during the election period, basically saying, look, let them be where they are. I have other things to do and I want to move on those. So it seems that his focus and attention and energies of his government might actually be more directed towards China
Yeah.
than Pakistan.
And also, like I said, unless Pakistan walks back, on this thing which Imran Khan has created, where is the wiggle room for diplomats?
Yeah, yeah. So great, Tilak. I think we've covered in a short time a big set of issues. That's of course we can go on. It's such an interesting subject and so important for India.
Yeah.
But I think we'll let it be and then maybe come back again for another
Thank you
session, depending on your convenience. But thank you so much.
Thank you,
for-
Pankaj. Thank
yeah.
you for inviting me. It's always great talking to you.
Thanks a
I
lot.
really enjoy our conversation.
And I believe you're going to write some more books. So all the best for that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And
Thanks a lot.
thanks for a lot.
Thank you.
Dear viewers, thank you very much for joining us at this episode with Mr. Tilak Deveshar, a known and very knowledgeable expert on Pakistan, Afghanistan. We hope you enjoyed the conversation. Till we meet again, goodbye and thank you. Namaskar.